Hello, hello. So today I want to talk to you uh, about a few books for one thing, but also um, on your journey to finding the best version of yourself and finding awakening and consciousness in your life. Um, not that I. This is really weird to talk about. It's weird to say those kinds of words to me in some ways because I don't think you ever arrive, so like nobody's really an expert, and I'm not claiming to be one. But I do feel like I have found things that have brought me joy and peace and understanding in my life, which is why I'm doing these videos, because I want to share them with you, and I just enjoy talking about them, to be honest. And if they are somehow helpful to somebody who watches these videos, that's cool. That's great. So, one thing I've noticed in life is, um, culturally speaking, in the culture we live in, sometimes we are just offered, um, what's that Bible verse that says um, something like, if your son asked for a fish, would you give him a snake? If he asked for bread, would you give him a stone? Um, that's talking about giving good gifts. And I think sometimes our culture only offers us snakes and stones. Sometimes. I stopped purchasing cable a long time ago in my life. I could not justify spending however much cable costs now. But whatever it cost then, I just couldn't justify spending that money on that and sitting around wasting my life in front of hundreds of channels. And even now, I prefer to not have a TV. Although I have uh, compromised in my life as I've gone along. First, I just didn't have a TV and kind of broke my dependence on it off. And once I realized, it's not that important to me, I can do without it, I tried having one because on occasion I enjoy watching a movie. Um, that's pretty much about it. I don't really like getting into TV series because you watch the pilot episode and you just get like sucked into like 30 seasons of whatever, and then you binge watch this crap, and at the end you're just like, what did I just do? Have you ever had that experience? It's a waste of time, brah. It's just a waste of time. So much of this stuff is just a waste of time. And I think that people I see around me just seem like all they do is, well, not so much people around me now, but a lot of people I've seen in my experience just kind of go to work and then they go home and like watch TV. And like that's it. Like TV kind of sucks because, well, literally, TV kind of sucks the life out of people, and it sucks the time that we have to live this life. Just sucks that away, and that sucks. Um, I feel personally like my life without a TV is much better because I then have to become conscious of my time and think about, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my time if I don't have TV? I can't just like sit down and like veg out and like let my mind I just give my mind to the culture and media and advertising that it wants to fill me with. It's really brainwashing. That's what TV is. You're just sitting there surrendering your brain to being filled with whatever the culture wants to give you. And it's a waste. So when you don't have TV, you think, well, what should I do? What can I do that's constructive with my time? and you become much more creative. And I think that part of like awakening and really savoring life is becoming creative with your time and finding things that you actually love doing that bring you fulfillment and joy. So in my life, I spend a lot of time going out to open mics, and I write poetry, and I read my poetry at the open mics. I also have learned to play didgeridoos, and I take those out and play those at open mics. Just did one last night at Barking Legs. It was super fun. I also enjoy reading, and I want to talk to you about a few books before we run out of time today. We'll just go ahead and do that now since we're talking about reading. Reading is great compared to TV. There's no advertising. You know what you're getting into, and books have been a major part of just my growth and my awareness. So a few books I just wanted to recommend to you. Well, hello, I do see you, friend. I see you loud and clear. I know. You are seen. Can we go play now? Thank you. Daniel Quinn's series of books, there's actually 4 of them. The first one is called Ishmael, and this is from the perspective of a middle-aged man who meets Ishmael and writes the story from his perspective. It's all about culture. I think I talked about these books already, but I want to bring it up again. My Ishmael is from the perspective of a 12-year-old girl. I would recommend this book if you're a female reader, somebody who's female out there. Elise really preferred this book over Ishmael. It's basically the same story, the same truths, just from a different perspective that I think appeals more to the female mind. This one is the story of B. Same perspective, same truths. Not same perspective, but it's the same truths delivered in another way. This one's a little harder to describe. It's more of an, I don't know. This one, if you're really into it, check it out. I would say you're going to get all the other truths from the other 2 books. So you don't necessarily have to read that one, but if you're a big fan of these books like I am, read that one too. Just another perspective. And this one, a lot of the Ishmael readers haven't read this one, but this one is the bomb. This one pulls it all together. Beyond Civilization takes those 3 books and basically just like wraps it all up. Because those 3 books are a little mysterious and hard to understand. This book takes it, it's like, he even says in here, a lot of people ask me what I meant in those books, and basically, to paraphrase, he said, this book is for all the dummies that don't get it, which included me. So that book was great. That just kind of boiled it down and helped me understand what he was really trying to say. 2 other, so now we're going to shift to another sort of area of reading. Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Awesome. This is a great book. It's a great companion book to like The Untethered Soul. I kind of prefer The Untethered Soul to this book, but both of these books are great. And to be honest, I bought this like companion book. It's Practicing the Power of Now, and this little book basically takes this book, boils it down, and gives you like the nuts and bolts. So in all honesty, you could get this little book. It's a much quicker read. It's much more straight to the point. I basically have every single page in this book underlined. I honestly think I do have every single page in this book underlined. I used to carry this book around with me and just like read it and read it and read it, almost like the Bible. This is an awesome book, and so is The Untethered Soul that I talked about in a previous video. I think I also mentioned The Alchemist. in a previous video. This is just a fun little book to read, and it's got some pretty cool truths in it. This one's actually a graphic novel, which is kind of an interesting way to read the book, so that's fun. The Essential Tao. This has the Tao Te Ching in it by Lao Tzu, which I think is a great book. And it's also got the stories of Zhuangzi, including the story of Peng, which is one of my favorites. The Great Work of Your Life by Stephen Cope is a great book. He just, from the perspective of the Bhagavad Gita, he talks about finding your dharma. Basically finding your passion in life and then living it out fully. And you know, we don't have time for TV when we're doing that. That's my point. Find your passion in life and do that, because today's the day for living, not for dying. Today is the day for living, so live it. Get off your ass and take today by the horns, make it great. The Shack is another awesome book from a very interesting, I don't know if I call it a Christian perspective, because it's so like, oh, how do you even describe this book? It's a story, but the truths in the story are so like, they challenge Christianity in a really good and refreshing way. Get this book if you haven't read it. I love that book. Here's Walden. I talked about Walden. At least read the first chapter, Economy, and then in this book, at the end, it's got Life Without Principle. I love those two sections. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about in the area of books. But find your passions. Find the things you love to do. I love ultralight backpacking. I love the other things I talked about. I said I'm playing didgeridoos. I'm also learning the sitar. I want to get Native American flute and learn that. What else do I love? I think I mentioned poetry. There's just so many things that are awesome. Find hobbies, find things you love to do. Go out and be with people. Find ways to create that community wherever you are. Don't just sit at home all the time. Get out. There's a lot to live out there. That's my message for today. Take life by the horns. Today's the day for living. Get yourself, it's getting wintry. It's time to be getting yourself some good books to read when it's too cold to go outside. So I've given you a few recommendations here. Oh, I almost forgot. I got this other little stack here. If you're into like Native American stuff, just a few books that I have enjoyed in that aspect. Spotted Tail's Folk is all about my ancestor, Chief Spotted Tail. But even more than that, this goes through the entire early history of the Sioux Indians as they migrate from Minnesota into South Dakota and Nebraska. So that's going to cover like the early history. Fool's Crow is amazing. It covers the latter history. Basically, Spotted Tail's book covers the history up until the massacre at Wounded Knee, and this one takes it from there all the way up until modern reservation time. But what's super interesting about this book is it uncovers, basically, along with this companion book, Black Elk Speaks, these two were actually related. Fool's Crow, or Black Elk was Fool's Crow's uncle, and Black Elk taught Fool's Crow the ways of the Lakota medicine man. And Black Elk covers in this book a lot of those practices that were supposed to be hidden And Fool's Crow in this book basically fleshes it all out. He gives you measurements for sweat lodges, tells you how to, what the pipe is all about. He gives you everything that you could ever want to know about Native American medicine man practices. Super interesting, and I'm into some of that stuff. If you are too, these 3 books are great. Well, kind of at the end of my time here today. I will see you around the corner. I hope that you get up and live some life today and think about some things that you could bring into your life to replace TV and other wastes of time if you want to. Just a suggestion. Just what I did in my life. That's it. Take it easy.